Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel after over 2 years since I made the last video. This video is probably as much of a surprise for me as it is for you, just because I did decide last year that I didn't really want to make any more videos recorded in Train Simulator or Train Sim World. But recently, I don't know, I've just been inspired to really come back to it. So after I made my last video at the end of 2018, I started a new job. I actually work for London Ambulance Service now as a 999 call handler and dispatcher, and that really kept me busy for a long time. And I moved from where I was living in Bexhill up to London, and I just didn't really have the space in the new place to set up my PC and so on. So I hadn't really done much gaming at all for the last couple of years, but recently I've got my PC set up again, and I've been having some problems playing Train Simulator. I think just that the hardware on my PC is getting a bit old, and it's struggling a bit with it just keeps blue screening when I'm playing the game. But instead I've been playing Train Sim World 2, and I actually think it's quite an improvement over what's come before. And as I've been driving these journeys on these different routes and trains that we didn't have when I last made videos on this channel, I've been enjoying it so much. I just thought, hey, why don't I just see if I can record a few videos? So I'm looking to just do this sort of mini series within Train Sim World 2. This doesn't mean I'm necessarily coming back to YouTube full-time or permanently making this kind of video, but I'd just like to catch up and cover a lot of the routes and trains that I haven't yet made a video on. So for this first video, we're going to be driving on the Isle of Wight line, which I felt was really quite a fitting comeback to YouTube, because the first video I ever made, way back in 2014 I believe it was actually on the Isle of Wight line in Train Simulator. And I've actually made 3 videos on this route, so I have driven both directions within the game Train Simulator. And in addition to that, I've also made a route guide documentary, which really gives some of the context and the historical background of this route. So I'm going to link to all of them in the video description, the 2 driving videos from Train Simulator and also the route guide documentary. So for this video, we're going to be driving from Shanklin to Ryde Pier Head, a journey distance of something like 8.5 miles. We will be calling all stations along the route except Smallbrook Junction. So our stops will include Lake, Sandown, Brading, Ryde St John's Road, Ryde Esplanade, and finally Ryde Pier Head. The train that I'm driving on the journey today is the Class 483 electric multiple unit, which was originally built in 1938 for London Underground and was in service for around 50 years with London Underground until 1988, at which point these trains were then transferred to the Island Line, where they were in service from 1989 to this year, 2021. In fact, they were withdrawn, I believe it was January this year, they were withdrawn from service, and later this year they're going to be replaced with the new Class 484 unit, which is modified from the London Underground D78 stock. So the livery of this train is the ex-Network South East livery, which was found throughout the British Rail southern region up until privatisation. These units were manufactured by Metro Camel, and they're formed of 2 coaches per unit with a capacity of 84 seats. They're maintained at Ryde Depot, which is at Ryde St John's Road Station. They have a maximum speed of 45 miles per hour. Each coach is around 52 feet long, and the total weight of each 2-car unit is around 55 tonnes, with a power output of 500 kilowatts or 670 horsepower. And they run on the 630 volts DC third rail electrification system. Okay, so I've just got into the cab of the unit so that we can set up the unit ready for departure. For anyone who's new to this channel, I just wanted to mention at this point that the aim of these route learning videos is to teach people how to drive like a real train driver. As I'm sure you're aware if you play the game, there's plenty of heads-up displays to tell you what's coming next, like how far away the next station stop is, how far away the next speed limit is, which gives you advanced warning to be able to slow down in time and stop in time and so on. But of course real train drivers don't have that, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be driving without any of the heads-up displays or anything. I'm going to show you, well, hopefully show you how to drive more like a real driver does. Of course, I'm not a real train driver myself, and I'm not claiming that I get everything right or perfect, but I'm going to give it the best attempt that I can. So I'm just going to turn the HUD on for a moment just to set up the cab here at the back. So you can see there we've got some switches. We've got the master key switch and the master key lever. I actually find it really difficult to know which one of these I'm clicking on unless I put the HUD on. So I'm just going to click on the master key there now. So we've got that on, and then just behind that you can see you've got the master key lever. So if I just click and drag that, the master key lever is now on, and that's now activated the cab in this unit. So let's just zoom out again here. The next thing we need to do is put the reversing handle in so that we can get the train set up. So if I click on the reversing thing just to the front, I'll just zoom in so you can see it a bit better. If I click on that, you can see that we've now inserted the handle, and you can see there we've got off, reverse, and you've got 4, 1 and 2. So what we need to do is we need to put it into 4, 2 for now, which is forward 2. So forward 1 is the mode you would use generally if you're getting less adhesion, you're expecting a lot more wheel slip. It gives you a bit less power as we start moving. Just above the reversing handle there you can see the power handle, which has 3 notches or settings, which is shunt, series and parallel. So shunt you'll generally use to start the train moving, and then you go up to series and up to parallel gradually as you increase speed. But one thing I should mention with this type of power handle is if you actually want to reduce power, you can't just cut it back to the previous notch. You have to move all of the way back to the off or idle position and then reapply power to the position that you want it to be in. Just to the left of that here we've got the main brake handle. So as you can see there, if we just move it there, we're now in the fully released position, and then it's just a notched brake handle at the start, and then gradually we just increase the brake there. The brakes are actually very good on this unit. I generally will use just the first lightest brake application or the second, so if you just press the brake button twice. I find beyond that the brakes are just too hard and you end up stopping too quickly, which just doesn't seem realistic for passenger comfort. I'm just going to press H now to turn on the headlights and press I to turn on the instrument lights. As you can see there, the speedometer has now illuminated as well. Now, I found with the field of view with this particular unit that when you're in the cab, if you look up properly, you can't see the speedometer at all, which is absolutely no use if you want to drive like a real driver would. So I'm just gonna, as I'm driving, just try and keep the view pointed down a bit. Unfortunately, you don't get quite such a clear view out of the main window, but it does allow us to see the speedometer, though again that might disappear at points on the journey. For example, when you apply the brakes, the cab seems to just come forward a bit towards you, and that means that the speedometer's view can be temporarily obscured. So yeah, now we've set up the unit ready for departure. Let's just take another quick look outside the train, and then we're going to depart on our journey towards Ryde. So departing away from Shanklin, the speed limit here is currently 15 miles per hour with around 1 mile to go to our first stop at Lake. And as you probably just noticed, we just passed a 45 mile per hour speed board there. So I was just waiting just for a moment to ensure that the rear of the train has passed. And now we can accelerate up towards 45 miles per hour. For anyone who's interested, the service that I'm driving is actually from timetable mode in this game. It's 2 Delta 58, the 1942 Shanklin to Ryde Pier Head service, and I set the weather to summer cloudy, should you wish to recreate this exact journey. So now we're just over 40 miles per hour. I've just cut the power off here as we're actually on a downward gradient of around 1.1%. And as the train slowly accelerates up towards 45, I will use the brakes to control the speed if necessary. So we're doing around 44 miles per hour now, so I'm just going to apply a little bit of braking there. That's it, just to bring our speed off slightly. So this whistle post here indicates a foot crossing which is coming up shortly, and we actually had 750 yards to go to our stop at the whistle post, and the braking point for Lake Station is just after this upcoming foot crossing. So we're just passing the crossing now. We're still on a quite steep downward gradient. I'm now going to apply the brakes to start bringing us towards a stop. So I'm currently in the second step of braking, and that's brought our speed off quite nicely. I don't really want to enter the platform much faster than 20 miles per hour. And here I want to stop about, I think it's about 2/3 of the way along. I want the public information point to be just around the area of the middle window. So I'm just bringing our speed down now to try and stop us in the right place. And I'm just looking for that information point. They're not quite there. I'm stopping slightly too early, I think. And there it is, just on the right, the white box that you saw there. So departing away from Lake, the speed limit here is still 45 miles per hour, and we're starting on a downward gradient of 0.8%. I was actually trying to get the gradient to display in ratios in this game, which is what I'm more used to, but for some reason I just can't get it to display like that at the moment. So at this point we've got around 0.8 miles to go to our stop at Sandown, and around 0.6 miles to go to an upcoming 15 mile per hour speed limit. So you can see we've got a cautionary signal there. So if that signal is at caution, as I made on my notes here, then we've got 900 yards roughly to go to the danger signal. So I've just idled the power here, just over 40 miles per hour, as we're on a downward gradient on this right-hand curve. And we've got a warning here now for the upcoming 15 mile per hour speed restriction. So I'm just going to start applying some brakes. And the speed restriction comes into force just after the repeater signal that you can see coming up just ahead. Now here you can see what I was talking about earlier, where the trains sort of come towards us, and I can't quite read the speedometer much below 20 miles per hour. So I might have slowed down a little bit too much there. Yeah, we're about 12, 13 miles per hour. At this point I'm now going to coast into the station here at Sandown. So here at Sandown, we want to stop right near the end of the platform, right by the brown building that you can see on the left. Now you can just see the S sign indicating the stop sign for trains of all lengths. Departing away from Sandown here, the speed limit is currently 15 miles per hour with around 1.8 miles to go to our next stop, which is Brading. So I've just idled the power here at around 12 miles per hour because we are on a downward gradient, and then in a moment the speed limit will be going back up to 45. I'm just going to use just a tiny bit of braking there just because I felt we might exceed the speed limit. So the speed limit's now gone up to 45. I'm not going to start accelerating until we're just a little bit closer to that post you can see on the right. And now let's just give it the power. So as we get towards 40 miles per hour, and I'm going to shut off the power and just allow the train to coast, as we are on a downward gradient of 1.3% at present. As we enter this straight here, you can see there's a visible gradient change coming up just ahead. I'm just going to use just a tiny bit of braking there again just to control the speed. Yeah, there's a visible grade change here, and at this point we've got around 1 mile to go to the next stop. So I'm just giving us a bit of low power now to try and maintain the speed, ensure that we don't lose too much speed here. The next landmark that I'm actually looking out for is a 20 mile per hour speed warning. That warning is 700 yards from the speed limit itself, and the speed limit comes into force just after the next stop. But it's actually really helpful as a guide to let us know that we're getting closer to braiding. So keeping the power in series here seems to be pretty much maintaining our speed at around 44-45 miles per hour. You can now see the Morpeth board coming up for the 20 restriction. So I've just shut off the power now. I'm going to allow the train to coast, and we're going to start applying the brakes in a moment, just as we get a little bit closer to the station. You can now see the platform just coming up in the distance. I've just applied a little bit of light braking to start bringing some speed off. So here at Braiding Station, we want to stop just before the footbridge. So I'm just jumping between the first and second steps of braking here, just to bring our speed down nicely, and we've got the footbridge just coming up. So we should be stopping in just about the right place. So departing away from braiding, the speed limit immediately drops to 20 miles per hour, departing away from the station, and we've got around 3.3 miles to go to the next stop, which is Ryde St John's Road. So now we've reached 20 miles per hour. I'm just going to cut the power off for a moment. And I'm just going between idle and low power to try and ensure that we don't lose too much speed here, with the speed limit about to increase to 40 miles per hour. And now I'm going to start accelerating up to the new 40 mile per hour speed restriction. Now we're reaching 40 miles per hour. I'm just going to cut off the power to allow the train to coast. I'll just go between idle and series to try and help us maintain the speed here. In fact, in series, we're not quite maintaining the speed, so I'm just going to go up to parallel for a moment. And as I mentioned before, what I'm going to have to do now is cut the power back and now increase back to series. The speed limit is now increasing to 45 miles per hour. At this point we've got around 2.2 miles to go to the next stop, and we're on a steep upward gradient of around 1.3%, though the gradient is going to level after this right hand curve. So I've kept in full power there to try and keep us going up towards 45. The gradient has now levelled out, so I've now shut off the power to allow the train to coast. And what I'm now looking for is an upcoming warning for a 30 mph speed restriction, which comes into force just after the platform at Smallbrook Junction, which is the next station on this route. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, we're not stopping there. So I'm going to aim to slow down for that 30 limit, just as we approach the platform at Smallbrook Junction station. Just giving us a little bit of power there, just because we were just losing a bit of speed. And now back to coast, and here we're at the 30 mph speed warning, which is 450 yards from the speed restriction itself. Now coming up on the platform at Smallbrook Junction, so I've just got the brakes on now to bring our speed down. I've used the second step of braking, and now I'm releasing the brakes and just going to allow us to coast for a moment. The speed limit is immediately going back up to 45 mph straight after the junction, as you can see here. So now let's give us some power to bring our speed back up. We are on a downward gradient of 0.6%, so I'm just going to shut off the power and allow the train to coast as we get to just over 40 mph. We've now got a warning for an upcoming 20 mph speed restriction, which comes into force just after the next stop. So what I'm looking out for now is the signal box at Ryde St John's Road, and as I see the signal box, I'll then start braking for our stop. I can now see the signal box just ahead. It's that white sort of, well, it's the white building with the triangular roof there. So I've just got the brakes on quite lightly to start bringing our speed down. And here at Ryde St John's Road, we need to stop at the S sign right at the end of the platform. Just applied some harder braking there just to bring our speed down. And you can see the S sign just coming up on the left hand side. I nearly stopped too early just then. And this should be about the right place to stop. So departing away from Ryde St John's Road, the speed limit here, as you can see, is now 20 mph, with around 0.6 miles, so just over half a mile to go to our next stop, which is Ryde Esplanade. So as we now reach 20 mph, I'm just shutting off the power to allow the train to coast at this point. There will be a downward gradient that's steepening in a moment, and so I'm going to have to use the brakes to control the speed to hold us at 20 mph. So as you reach this overbridge, you can see just here, this is the landmark to let us know that the downward gradient is now about to steepen. So I'm just using the brakes to just hold us at roughly between 18 and 20 mph. We now entering Ryde Tunnel. As we go through the tunnel, the gradient will level out, and then as we reach the exit of the tunnel, we're actually going to be on a steep upward gradient of 2%, which I believe is something like 1 in 50 when converted to a ratio. So I've currently got the train coasting. You can see that we're not really losing or gaining any speed. The gradient has leveled out, but in a moment we're going to start losing quite a lot of speed as the gradient steepens. And the gradient has steepened now, so I'm now increasing the power, and I've gone up to series to just try and hold the speed so that we don't lose too much. As we exit the tunnel, we're now getting very close to the next stop. In fact, you can see the platform just coming up just ahead now. So I've just cut off the power at this point. The upward gradient will help us to lose a bit of speed. And here at Ryde Esplanade station, I need to stop just before the end of the station roof. So just using the lightest brake application there. Just going to give us a little bit more, and we're just stopped in just about the right place. Departing away from Ryde Esplanade station here, the speed limit is 20 miles per hour with around 650 yards to go to the next and final stop on this journey, which is Ryde Pier Head. Of course so named because we're now travelling along Ryde Pier. So the speed limit remains 20 miles per hour until right before we enter the platform at the pier head, at which point the speed limit will then drop to 15 miles per hour. So just cut off the power at this point to allow the train to coast. We are on a slight upward gradient, if I remember correctly. So I am going to just give us a bit more power now, just to bring us back to 20. Try and maintain the speed as close to that as I can. In real life at this point, you'd be able to see the mainland UK from the end of the pier. Of course, this is where you take the boat over to Portsmouth to the mainland. I say it's where, as if I implied that there's only one location, but of course there are many locations you can take the boat from the Isle of Wight. I've just cut the speed down to 15 miles per hour, just in time for the speed restriction, and now let's slow us down a bit further. Now I would personally stop really close to the buffers, but the game seems to want me to stop about a whole train length away from the buffers, so I'm going to hopefully stop in just the right place in a moment. Just get a little bit closer. And according to Train Sim World, this is roughly the correct stopping point. And so here we are, arrival at Ryde Pier Head. Thank you very much for watching this video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. As I said, I hadn't actually planned on making any more videos, but now I'm actually hoping to make a little series within Train Sim World too. So please do let me know if you enjoyed it, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I hope to see you again here on YouTube very soon. It's certainly good to be back.